All right, and now with us for more is Professor Eric De Torres of the Political Science Department at the University of the East. Good morning, Professor, and welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning, and it's good to be back here in your program.
All right, first of all, Professor, we wanted to get your thoughts on the ongoing rally happening right now along EDSA staged by the INC, protesting the upcoming plunder charges that will be filed against Senator Rodante Marcoleta.
Well, this is a very surprising development, and it seems that it's really, very dynamic, and the officials, if I would say, they're very much caught unaware in terms of how this will turn out, and to mobilize 7 to at least 9,000 people, that's too much. And I think what also triggered this was also the news or the information yesterday that former DPW Secretary Bunoan will become a state witness. So who's also one of the most important key figure in the flood control scandal, and yet there's also, of course, the issue with regard to filing of a plunder case with regard to Senator Rodante Marcoleta. So that basically, I think, triggered this uprising, if you may, on the part of the religious organization.
Right. But aside from what you mentioned in support of Senator Rodante Marcoleta and, of course, former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan, don't you think also that this has something to do with the impeachment case of the Vice President Sara Duterte? Because exactly a week before July 6 is the impeachment trial of the Vice President.
Yes, we could very much also attribute this, and perhaps if you intend to look at it in a more profound perspective, it's really about the timing in terms of one, from looking at it from whatever angle or vantage point, it's sort of pressure on the part of possibly Senator Marcoleta to, rethink in terms of his positioning and the way that he intend to, perform in terms of his duties as form part of the impeachment, court, by which we all know for a fact that Senator Marcoleta is a very strong supporter of the Dutertes and is very critical in terms of his line of questioning and so on and so forth. So people are also wondering why now, and the timing for this plunder case to be filed against him is a week before basically the impeachment trial of VP Sara Duterte. And it's also a way of perhaps looking at it in that perspective of reminding, a reminder, especially for those who are re-electionist senators, that
Right.
the religious organization or INC is really a force to reckon with in terms of providing and giving base votes on the part of this re-electionist. So if you're really an re-electionist and you're looking at the 2028, it's really a reminder in terms of their numbers that that particular base votes will be gone if you, for example, will not perform your duties, or perhaps on a sideway of not being able to become objective on the whole impeachment proceedings.
Professor, earlier today, INC spokesperson Brother Edwil Zabala said in a statement that the purpose of this emergency rally is to call for transparency, to call for accountability, justice, and peace. They pointed out that it was even Senator Rodante Marcoleta who first launched an investigation into this flood control scam when he was still the chairperson of the Blue Ribbon Committee. So now they're saying that this is injustice because this is selective justice. Now, what do you make of that? Is that a fair assessment on the part of the Duterte allies?
Yes, if you notice, there's really a pattern in terms of how basically the timing of the events occurred. Secondly, when we try to look at other key personalities, the question we have in mind is that why is it that there are no other charges filed against this, other personalities. For example, there had been significant, development in terms of Senator Escudero and Senator Joel Villanueva, whose names were basically, floated and, implicated by former DPWH Undersecretary Bernardo. But what happened? After, for example, they switched sides and went to the majority, all of a sudden the issues, or basically the charges, seems to water down. So there's really a lot of speculations are really mounting, and at the same time the manner by which how you create this atmosphere of really trust and confidence is actually withering away, considering that it creates this perception of selective justice on the part of people who are really against or favoring an ally of the Dutertes.
So in short, I remember you said it before that capable leaders are needed for anti-corruption reform. So by saying that, do you believe that this administration is using this filing of cases against the pro-Duterte allies as their political weapon?
Well, of course, we could only second thought or second guess in terms of the way that we intend to look at such. But it seems that there's really there seems to be a pattern, Angela, in terms of the turn of events, and at the same time the manner by which you look at key personalities that is actually involved in this whole flood control program. So I think it's deeper. It's deeper in the context by which how will this now affect the overall impeachment trial. So as it is, the Senate is already divisive. We're really worried about how will they be able to balance the impeachment trial as well as the budget, and we also have to be very critical and observe the whole budget process, and not just being able to suck into the whole impeachment trial. So we have to balance it out and make senators really work less politics, and really work and be objective for both the impeachment trial and of course the budget for next year.
Well, you did say, Professor, that the Senate, as it is already very divisive. I'm curious, how do you think all these developments will affect the dynamics among senators in this impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte? In the past few weeks, we saw 2 senators from the minority already move to the new majority. Do you think there could be more senators who could transfer and think about their political survival here at the end of the day?
Well, we will not be surprised if, sooner or later, there will be some who will basically switch sides. Of course, it all depends really on, it's really the road to 2028. For the re-electionists, of course, they are thinking about the possible base votes and support that they will lose, especially the Mindanao bloc and, some of the Visayas, areas. So if you're really a national, you're running for a national post, it's imperative for you to be able to count and you project the base votes that you will get. And it's not really it's very difficult really because of the bailiwick of the Dutertes that we have witnessed this for consistent surveys that she remains steady, or that 30 to 35% remains to be a steady voting block or voting support on the part of the Dutertes. So again, it is a sort of a reminder, and how if you're a re-electionist senator or eyeing to run for a higher position for 2028, right? This is a very important numbers game in terms of looking at the figures of the possible vote or base votes that you will get from these particular areas of the country.
But seeing the crowd earlier today at the EDSA People Power Monument, do you think this is impactful enough to create movements or alliances both in the Congress and the Senate, as you said earlier? Do you think that's enough?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Angela. But I think in any revolution, or in any, for example, uprising, if you may, we need to look at the presence of basically one important ingredient here, and that is the backing basically of various sectors. And if you look at it as such, this is led by solely a religious organization. And what is lacking here in terms of the movement really is, of course, other sectors that are actually very critical. So one is basically the business sector, the middle class, if you may. So of course, this is an this is an impactful event. It's probably a wake-up call in terms of providing base votes, but we have to look at the bigger picture in terms of the presence of these elements or these other stakeholders in terms of their support, and in terms really of their demand in terms of such accountability, because there's also this perception that they are just particular about the state or Senator Marcoleta's case, and of course calling all for transparency and so on. But this triggered because of yesterday's announcement that one of these days a plunder case will be filed against Senator Marcoleta.
Well, Professor, we are now less than a week away from the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, beginning on July 6. Now, yesterday, the pre-trial order has already been released. We saw the impeachment court here approving a 92-day trial schedule. There are also more than 100 witnesses for both the prosecution and the defense. What does this tell us about where the impeachment trial is headed? How exhaustive do you think these proceedings will be?
Well, it will. We will expect that this will be very legal. This will be very technical, and this is it's really the avenue for the vice president to really clear her name, and to fight it out with their respective legal strategies and evidences. The most important thing here is really about evidences presented by each camp, for that matter. So I'm also worried that, as what I have said earlier, that the energies of our lawmakers, the energies of the people in the government is focused on this impeachment. And I'm not saying that the impeachment is not important, but what I'm saying is that it will be as much as important as the upcoming budget deliberations. So you have on the one side the impeachment trial, you have on the other side the budget deliberations. So we also have to be we also have to monitor and be critical also about, as what I have said, the budget deliberations, and in preparation for the 2027 budget hearing.
Well, what do you make of the additional private prosecution that was released yesterday, involving, of course, former spokesperson Theodore Te, Attorney May Divina Gracia, Arnold Labay, and Reynaldo Robles? And Robles being the lawyer of former Senator Trillanes for over 22 years. How impactful is this in the prosecution panel?
Well, of course, they have a very good lineup. We would like to believe that in terms of their of the wisdom by which the prosecution panel chose the private prosecutors is basically also within their capacity and expertise within the manner by which they are called upon. So this is also a very welcoming development, especially Attorney Theodore Te, who's been in the legal profession, and his expertise basically is really there. So we are expecting really a legal battle and a master class of defense and the prosecution to fight it out in terms of the parameters of what the evidences are actually showing. And beyond this, I think the most important thing is the narrative. The narrative is very important. That's why we really appreciate programs like this, and of your network, that you flesh out issues and provide an objective approach in terms of making our countrymen be informed and be aware and be critical at all times.
Well, even ahead of the trial, Professor, we're already seeing a glimpse of the strategies of both sides here, of the defense and the prosecution. But I wanted to focus on the defense because we saw that they argued already, as early as now, that the vice president's threats against President Marcos, the first lady and the former House Speaker, are covered by freedom of speech. How strong do you think that defense will be in the trial proper?
Yes, of course, we are all aware that you have in defense of the freedom of speech, but also there's no absolute freedom of speech and expression. So I think this is a very critical aspect by which the prosecution will have to really prepare their counter argument, but as well as the defense, because at the end of the day, I think because it's on record, there are evidences, basically a strong evidence of her caught in the camera, or there's really a recording. So how will you be able to really fight it out and make your defense about it? So again, the perception and the manner by which the narrative will be created is very important here with regard to the issue of the threat towards the president and some key personalities.
All right, according to the Senate rules and of course the Constitution, ang accused ay pwede namang hindi pumunta sa kanyang impeachment trial. But history would tell us President Joseph Estrada then appeared, late Justice Corona also appeared. Should the Vice President also appear at her own trial, and what is better for her image given she is running for president?
Yeah, it's a very good question. In my perspective, of course, the wisdom of the defense team they have their own legal strategy with regard to this. But from a political vantage point, I think it is just and proper that the vice president should take the stand and be a witness in terms of really providing clarity with regard to all these allegations, because this basically mounted out simply because of them also refusal to really appear in the Justice Committee, by which lots of speculations were already made. So I think this is about time, and this is a perfect opportunity that she herself be able to take the hard questions, clarify things personally. And
Right.
I think if you are running for a higher office, it's also a test of leadership and character of what to expect if, for example, should this turn out in her favor, which would allow her to run for presidency for the 2028 election. So if you're going to ask me from a political vantage point,
Right.
it's going to be a very good move on the part of the vice president to appear and to answer all these allegations by herself. So, but I think, again, that would all depend on the legal strategy of her team and their wisdom to whether or not is really justifiable for her to appear or not.
Well, that's one thing we're going to watch out for, but for now, we're going to leave that there. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. That was Professor Eric De Torres.